In this video and the next ones, we'll start by designing the iOS 6 version of Instagram, and later on, we'll work on our own iOS 7 redesign. The reason we're doing this is because iOS 7 embraced the flat design trend, as opposed to the skeuomorphic approach that was prevalent in the previous iOS version. Skeuomorphism design imitates the aspect of real-life objects, like this calculator for instance. Flat design is more simple and some people would say more elegant. There's a stronger emphasis on content, and the UI uses less effects like shadows, glows, gradients or textures. But you might need to use these effects at some point, and I want to show you how to do it properly, and that's something that the previous version of Instagram did quite well. So wait until we finish the design and the redesign of the app before you start working on your own project. If you still have the sketch file from the previous video open, that's great. If not, that's fine. Just open a new file. Click Artboard, iOS Screens, and iPhone 5 Portrait. Now, open the iPhone 5 Frame Template 1x. This file is in the folder of this lesson or in the Templates folder. Now let's have a look at the dimensions of the two files we have opened. Over here and over here. As you can see, the default iPhone artboard that we just created is twice as big as the frame in the file you just opened. So why is that? Well, the iPhone 5 and 5S, like the iPhone 4 and 4S, is a Retina display device. That means that the resolution is twice as big as on non-Retina device. A single pixel in a non-Retina device is taken up by 4 pixels in the Retina version. Just in case you're not sure what a pixel is the smallest unit of measurement on a screen. Pixels are tiny squares that are part of the display, and if you look very closely at your screen, go ahead, do it. You should be able to see them and the gaps between them. So pixels are smaller on a Retina screen than on non-Retina screen. That allows more precision on the display, and that's what we refer to as a higher resolution. A point is a resolution independent measure. A point can be made of one or several pixels. On a non-Retina display, each point is made of 1 pixel. In the case of a Retina display, each point has a height of 2 pixels and a width of 2 pixels, so it's made of 4 pixels. This is why there is the same number of points on the Retina and on non-Retina screen of the same size. But when we design, we have to take this into consideration. On our computer, the dimensions are in pixels of the same size, not of variable sizes. So, one Retina point will appear twice bigger than one non-Retina point. This is why if you design a box with a width of 40 pixels and a height of 30 pixels for the iPhone 3, you will need to scale the width to 80 pixels and the height to 60 pixels if you want it to appear as big on the iPhone 4 or 5. If you're designing for other devices and need the dimensions of the screen and pixel density, check that link. Screen size is written this way, but it's in the description. Just to make sure we've understood this non-Retina Retina thing, let's have a look at the iPhone's resolutions. Where are they? Over here. Okay. So you can see that the iPhone 3 has a pixel density of 100% and the iPhone 4 and 5 of 200%. So despite the fact that they have the same physical width of the screen, the resolution over here is twice as big. That means, again, that for each pixel on the iPhone 3, there is 4 pixels on the iPhone 4 or 5. If you need to design for Android and need a converter for the different resolutions, you can go to thanlax.com/blog/density-converter, scroll down, and you'll be able to use a very handy converter. So, because phone screens have different resolutions, it will be easier for you at first to start designing for the lowest resolution and then make your design twice or 3 times bigger if the other resolutions you're designing for are twice or 3 times more important. We could do the opposite and reduce the size of every element once the design is finished, but because there is no such thing as a half pixel, We would have to keep in mind to use only multiples of 2 when setting dimensions. A 1 pixel border or a box with a height of 235 pixels would appear blurred when divided by 2. Another alternative would be to design every element for each specific screen separately, and that's probably what you'll end up doing later on, but it takes way more time and we want to focus on efficiency. So for now, we'll work on 1x as opposed to 2x if we were designing directly for Retina display. Alright, let's get to it now. We'll work with the template 1x that we have already opened. You can close the other one with the artboard created by Sketch. And let's also open our mockups to see what we have to do. We'll start with the home screen just like we did with the mockups, and just like we did with the mockups, we'll start by designing this navigation system. Okay, so let's unhide the status bar over here and create a rectangle. Make sure it's 320 pixels for the width, and the height doesn't really matter, but we can, let's put 60. Change the color to black and make sure to align it until it touches the status bar. We'll change its name to background top bar, and we'll put it in the status bar folder, and we'll lock this group. Great. Now let's create another rectangle, same width but with a height of 44 pixels, like this. Let's zoom in a little bit. We want to have rounded corners, so we'll change the radius to 4. But we don't want these two angles to be rounded, so we'll double click on the shape until we see these small white circles. We'll select the two corners we want to modify by clicking on the first one, holding Shift and clicking on the other one. And now you want to choose the straight point over here. And if we click out of the shape, yes, we're good. Let's position it like this. And let's resize the background top bar. We don't want to see it below. So like this. A height of 30 pixels should be fine. Now we want to change the color of this top bar. Let's rename it top bar. Great. We could use a single color like the one we've said earlier, the base color. That would be something like 66, 53, and a hue of 215, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, we could do that. But we'll use a gradient that goes from a light to a darker color to give the impression that the shape is embossed. So instead of selecting color here, select gradient, like this. The white circle around the stop shows you which color point is selected, or which stop is selected. We can change the place of the stops like this in order to orient the gradient. We can also add stops in the middle and change the color, for instance. Move them around like this between the two other stops. And of course we can delete them by hitting the backspace key. So click on the stop at the top and change the color to this one, 538388 for the first color, and we'll do the same thing over here but with another color, a darker one, 2A5A83, like this. Now let's add a border at the bottom. We could use this border tool, but this would create a border all around the element, and we just want it at the bottom. So we'll use an inner shadow instead. Click on the plus to add an inner shadow. Okay, so we don't want it to be blurred, so we'll say 0. And we don't want it to be at the top. See, right now, this shadow is at the top because we have 1 in the white field. We want it to be at the bottom, so we put -1 like this. As you might have guessed, Y is the horizontal inner shadow, and X is the vertical one, like this. And Y, like this, at the bottom or at the top. Okay, so -1 in the Y field. So we'll leave the X blank, the blur blank, and the spread is an option that allows you to have shadows coming from all sides. Let's zoom out a little bit, I'll show you. Like this. But we don't want that either. We'll change the color of this border to 063056, sorry. And we'll change the opacity to 100%. Like this, nice border. Let's now add a slight glow at the top of the bar. We'll use the same tool, the inner shadow. But this time, instead of entering a specific color, we'll use semi-transparent white. So white, opacity 20%, like this. Hold on, we need to change that. We don't want it to be blurry, like this. And this time we put 1 in the Y field and not -1 because we want this inner shadow to be at the top. And finally we'll add a shadow to this shape. So select shadows, not inner shadows, click the plus, put 1 in the Y field because we want the shadow to be at the bottom, and see, it's almost as if it was coming from underneath the shape. We'll keep the shadow a bit blurry, but maybe less too. I think is good. We'll also change the color. We'll keep semi-transparent black, but 40% opacity instead of 50%. Looks good. Let's zoom out a little bit. Yeah. So what's next? Well, let's have a look at the mockups. Okay, the refresh button now. We'll add a rectangle. Press R as usual. Give it the right size, which will be something like 35 by 30 pixels. And place it 7 pixels away from the right side of the screen. We can do the math in Sketch, so we could do 320, which is the size of the screen, minus 35, which is the width of the button, minus the 7 pixel away from the border, 7 pixel margin, and this will be it. But we can also do it manually, so we can select the shape, place it against the border until you see this red line, and then hit the left arrow 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you select the rectangle and hold the Alt key and move your mouse over the top bar, you can see that we have a 7 pixels margin at the top on the right side and the bottom. So this is good. We'll change the radius to 3 to have rounded corners like this. Yep. And now let's work on its recessed look. We'll start by changing the color to a gradient. This time we'll use the same color at the top and at the bottom, but we'll change the opacity. So the color will be, the Xcode of the color will be 1F4C73. We'll copy it for later. We'll change the opacity to 5%. Now we'll select the one at the bottom, paste the hex code, and change the opacity to 50%. Yeah. We also add a border, this time with the border tool, because we want it to be all around the shape. Let's get rid of this one. You can get rid of an effect by dragging it outside of the panel like this. So a 1 pixel border like this, but we'll change the color. The hex code would be 0D3A62, like that. Let's go back. We'll change the border style or position, sorry, to inside. That's better. Now we'll add a glow just below the button. So we'll use a shadow for that. So add a shadow. Put 1 in the white field and 0 in the blur field. Let's zoom in a little bit so we see what we're doing. We'll change the color of the shadow to 537C 9C, just like this, and make sure the opacity is set to 100%. And there you can see the glow just below the button. So a shadow can also be a way to make a glow. Alright, we also add an inner shadow to our shape, so click plus. We'll have -1 in the white field. We'll keep it a bit blurry, so 1. And we also add a spread of 1, like this. Now let's change the color to 1F4C73, and we'll keep the opacity set to 50%. Let's go back. Okay, last thing we're going to do on this button is add a shadow at the top. So we'll use the inner shadow again. Okay, 1 is fine. This is at the top, as you can see. And we want it to be blurred, but maybe a little less, sorry. And let's change the color to 0E3B64 with the opacity set to 100%, like this. Combining these shadows with the light shadow at the bottom, the dark inner shadow at the bottom too, and the dark inner shadow at the top is very efficient when trying to give a recess fill to an object. So we might use that again in the future. And finally we'll add our logo. So press T and write in sample. We'll change the size to 34, like this. Put it in place. We'll change the font obviously to the one we denoted earlier, Billabong, like this. Let's center it. Yep. We'll change the color too. So let's go to more color. And actually we won't change the color over here because we want to add a gradient. So we'll use a fill like this. And we'll select the gradient. We go from E8 EEF3 to 96 AEC2. Just like that. Okay, let's go back. We'll also add a shadow on this logo. Okay, we'll have 1 in the white fill. A little bit blurry. Let's zoom in a little bit to see what we're doing. Okay, something like this. Let's change the color to black. Yeah, with the opacity set to 100%. and we'll add another shadow, actually a glow. So what do? -1 to be at the top. We don't want it to be primary, so like this. And we'll change the color to a light color because we want it to be a glow. So ECF0F4 like this. Opacity set to 100%, just like that. Let's go back. But as you can see, we have something wrong going on here. So in order to fix that, select the text and go to Edit, Convert Text to Outlines. So this will convert the text to a vectorial shape. And now just click this little arrow and try to find the M and the A and click Union. We'll talk about that a bit later on. Now just do what I indicate. Do the same thing with the P and the M and click Union, and we're good to go. Let's now rename the different layers. So we have in simple, that's fine. We have the refresh button. And we'll group these 3 layers. We'll call this group top bar. A few tips when working with groups. If you hold the command key, you can select layers individually like this. If you hold Alt and Command and click, you'll get drop down menu with every layer under your mouse, so that's pretty useful too. And you can also activate the click-through option to the group by right-clicking on it and selecting click-through. You'll be able to select layers inside the group easily. But we won't do that for now. Alright. We'll add the refresh icon later on in the next video. Now we're gonna take care of the bottom bar. So we'll draw a rectangle like this. We'll give it the proper size, which is 320 by 45. Put it at the bottom, just like this. And change the color to black. Let's have a quick look at the mockups to see what we have to do. We have 5 tabs over here. We have the selected one, the normal tabs, and we have the call to action in the middle. Okay. So we want 5 tabs. 320, which is the width of this element and of the screen, divided by 5 is 64, but we'll need 4 1-pixel separators, and that means that we'll have 4 tabs with a width of 63 pixels, and our middle tab will have a width of 64 pixels. So let's do this. You want to give it a width of 63 pixels and a height of 44. So we just have a 1-pixel border at the top with the black bar. You can copy paste this shape by pressing Command C, Command V, and make sure that it's only 1 pixel away from the first one. We'll copy paste it again. Same thing, 1 pixel away, but this time, as we said earlier, we want it to have a width of 64 pixels. Copy paste this one with the width of 63 pixels and place it where it belongs, so just 1 pixel away from the first one, the previous one, and do that one more time. Great. We'll start with the normal tabs, so this one, and this last one, and we'll take care of the call to action and the selected tab afterwards. What we're going to do is we're going to give a random color to this layer and duplicate this layer, change its color and change its size. We want it to have a width that is 2 pixels smaller than the element underneath, so we can have this orange border of 1 pixel on the left and on the right. 1 pixel smaller over here, so we can have a border at the top too. Okay, so your element should have a width of 61 pixel and a height of 43 pixel. Okay, let's style these two elements. Well, actually, we'll group them first. These two. We'll call it the Explore tab because this is the second tab, and the second tab is our Explore tab. And we'll style these two elements. We'll add this one to start styling that one. We'll add a gradient. The color at the top will be 73797F. And the color at the bottom will be 3C4144, like this. And we'll change the name of this rectangle to border, because this will be the border of this button. It won't stay yellow, obviously. We'll change it to a gradient. The color at the top will be 4D5358, and the color at the bottom will be 2D3237, like this. Okay, looks fine. Let's zoom out a little bit. Now we're gonna rename this layer to tab, and we'll copy paste the style of this element, the border element, to these two rectangles. Okay, so right click on this layer, copy style, we'll select this one and this one, not this one and this one, and we'll paste the style. Now what we need to do is to copy this element, the top one, and put it on these two. So what we can do is do this. Move it with the arrow keys or with the mouse, whatever you like. We can group them, and this is the Native tab. Rename the layer. This one is the border layer. Border. And we'll do the same thing with the last one. But this time it will be a little bit different because we don't want to have a border on the right side, so we need to make it 1 pixel bigger to make sure that there is a 1 pixel border here but that there is no border over here. Let's group them. Rename the group Profile tab and make sure we give the proper name, border. Giving names to your layers might not seem very important, but when you'll be working with a lot of them, it will make your job much easier. Okay, let's close these. And let's take care of the middle tab now. Okay, so we'll basically do the same thing but with different colors. So let's add a gradient. The color at the top will be a light blue, 8CAAC5, and the color at the bottom a bit darker, 4A7396, like this. Now let's draw a rectangle. I haven't pressed enter. We'll make sure that we have a 1 pixel border on the left side, the right side, and at the top. 62 by 43, that's good because the layer underneath is 64 by 44. And we'll change its color with a nice gradient. The color at the top will be 5382A9, and the one at the bottom 2D5C83. Okay, let's zoom out to see what it looks like. Alright, last step we need to take care of is the first one, the selected. But before we do that, let's group these layers. This is the camera tab. This is the border. And this layer is the top layer. Now zoom in. And for this tab we also use a gradient, but a bit different from the one we've used before. This is going to be a radial gradient. Make sure you select the stop that's in the center and put it right here. Now let's grab this one and make the diameter of the circle a bit bigger than the width of the rectangle. Now select the color stop in the center of the circle. We'll change its color to something a bit closer to white. 828282, and the opacity to 20%. And for this color stop we'll make sure it's black, yes, 0, and we'll change the opacity to 60%. Let's make it just a bit bigger. Yes, something like this. Let's zoom out. What do you think? All we need to do now is to group these two layers. Home tab. This is actually out of the group, and we'll call it select tab, because we might need to move it around later on. Let's just order these groups. So we have home, explore, camera, notif, and profile. We'll just group all these layers and groups, and we call that bottom bar to keep it very tidy and clean. So I think we're done with our navigation. Great. In the next video I'll show you how you can preview your design on your device, and in the one after that we'll add the icons and we'll continue working on this interface.